What's up, gamers? How the heck are you? Welcome to another grounded video. All right, so I've been asked about this a few times and I really have not come up with a great way of showing this off. So I've been asked a few times of my step-by-step process of how I build some of the builds that I have because they're really cool and people are just interested in my builds, my bases. So I thought about breaking down the video into like different parts and like why I decided to do this versus this, but then it got kind of like annoying. And that was basically how I decided to just show you guys the house and kind of explain why I built it the way that I built it. And this is for purely aesthetic reasons, some practicality, but mainly aesthetic reasons. Let's get into it. I'm just going to show you each of my two favorite builds and then just kind of explain my thought process. So here we go. All right, guys, so just starting off with my number one favorite build. This was my main house for the entirety of this game. I built it. I started building this probably 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, however long it's been now. And I mean, it's grown over the years. It's changed slightly. I've made some adjustments to as the game progresses, or as the game developers progressed the development of this game until it was finally released. But this is the stage it's in now. This is where we're at, and I'm going to kind of just explain why. Ultimately, when choosing to do a build, location became the main focus of this, or of most of my builds. So I like to choose areas that are relatively center of a lot, of most of the major locations on the map. This one's a little off to the left side of the map, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not, trust me, it doesn't take too long to get across this map anyway, but I like the idea of it being relatively center of everything. So no matter where I wasn't that far from my base. So that's why this base became, an area that I really loved. 2 was flat. This rock, when I found this rock formation, these rocks were so flat and they just gave a perfect base. A perfect base for the bases. So perfect base for my foundations, and I just think that it worked out great. The initial idea came with, I love the idea of like a woodland themed. I wanted to use mainly wood. When you are planning your bases, I would recommend that you think about the material you're using, because I chose to use stem, and at the time, none of that was developed up there, so stem lacked. All right, so when you build any one of your bases, think about the materials you want to use and try to build in a location. Now, if it doesn't matter and you want to haul the stuff, I do have tips and videos and showing you great ways of getting material across this map. But if you're looking for something, you want material relatively close to where you're building. So try to find, like, if you're going to use a lot of wood, make sure there's a lot of stem around you. Grass is usually an abundance of in all locations, so grass is not that difficult. And then, if you want to use mushrooms, make sure you have either grow a bunch of mushrooms or have a bunch of mushrooms near your location. Simple as that. Anyway, so once I decided on wood, I liked the idea of palisade walls because of how tightly they fit together. If you guys notice, when you use stem walls, there's a huge gap in spacing, and you'll notice that on my second floor. But palisade comes with its flaws. It doesn't allow you to stack super well, and things don't like to attach to it super well. And I mean like doors and things like that, like especially in the beginning when they were still kind of working out how these walls, because they're meant to be walls, they're like fencing, they're not necessarily meant to be walls of a house. I chose to use it as the walls of a house because I really liked how it looks, and you are limited in, like, I couldn't put windows and things like that, so I had to be creative on how I created some of that kind of stuff. So I try to make my houses pretty symmetrical for the most part, because you want to kind of build off that. So I always think about where I'm going to place my door, and know that doors that are placed, so like if you're going to do this, they need to be the center. So you're going to have basically your foundation will need to be odd, or like not even, if that makes sense. Like, so when you go across your foundations, you have to count it out so that you end up with odd numbers so that you have a center row to work with. Otherwise, if you end up with an even number, your door is going to be off to the side and won't be the center of your house. So you have to plan that kind of stuff out, think about it. So I had to tear down and put up different walls going throughout this. And then as for just the main layout, I just decided to start building one side of it and then copy it onto the next side. So I wanted each side of the lower area to be very symmetrical. And this, whatever ended up in these little alcoves, ended up in the alcoves. The reason I chose to not match the floor here is because there wasn't a circle version of this floor, and I didn't want pieces sticking out of the edges on each of those sides. That was literally my only thought process. I like the idea of, if you're going to do a floor, for it not to match like your main floor, not to match your walls, there to be some contrast there. So if you, let's say you do grass walls, wooden floor looks really good, things like that. So changing it up like that, I really like that idea. And then I knew I was going to do a second story, because the way I like to build most of my structures is I have an idea that one part of it is like living, one part of it is like a bedroom style. I don't know if I can do quotations, bedroom. And then you have like a work area. So this would be like living. So I decided to like build it as if it was like a kitchen, a dining room with a trophy room, I guess. But then these things get massive, so I had to place them elsewhere. But you got, a dining table, but the kitchen's over here. Then you got a relaxing area back here, kind of thing. And then you got the bedroom up top where I have the bed, and I use these as like side tables, but they're chests. They used to hold like valuable things until I built the massive shed out there. Grounded dev teams, this is where you get me. Like, I hate how this looks. I've always hated how this looks. Even though I love this build and I love this house and I've always used it, but I hate that there's so much spacing in between these. These walls are stupid. I feel like I'm in a cage when these are up. I wish they were just joined closer together like the palisades are. I wouldn't have used palisades if these were closer together. I wanted to create windows, and this was my only way to get like these little windows in my house, was to do two half walls and then nothing, and then a two half walls and then one wall, to give the spacing that I needed to fit in the spaces that I needed. So because I did that, I created offset points for things to snap to, so that created this overlapping, but it ended up working, giving like a cool look to the house. So I was fine with it. Well, coming out the back door, I wanted a huge deck on the back. This was originally going to be where I had a lot of the crafting stuff, but I realized there was no way I was going to fit everything up here. That was just not going to happen. I built this solely to do nothing. I sleep in here, and that's about it. I sleep and then cook some food in here, and that's about it. I put a drying rack out here because this was going to be like the barbecue section. And I think, no kidding. And I even put the basketball goal right here for the outdoor like barbecue. I literally built this with the idea of like, this is going to be like a house, So I wanted it to like, all right, you have an overhanging like deck. You're going to need pillars to hold it up. You can remove these pillars, they're supporting nothing, but I needed them there aesthetically to fit the way that would hold up. You know what I'm saying? With all of this done, I realized I needed a shed. So this little section here, just real quick, this little section was built just so I could show off the zip lines, and then I was going to build a whole zip line network, and I just haven't done it yet. I haven't finished this yet because this is an actual playthrough of the game, and I have to go collect a lot of stem to build the stem all the way up because I need it to match my current aesthetic. So it has to be stem walls. I know I'm stupid, but it has to be stem walls, and it can't not be stem walls. So I built this little walkway out here. This is unnecessary, but I built it anyway because I like it, and that's why it's there. Literally, guys, this is all aesthetics. I need to hone in on this as aesthetics. This is my little, obviously, you could see that I'm currently working on getting that done. All right, so as for the shed, I had no idea. I ended up not putting walls on this because I didn't like, as I was going around with the pillars holding everything up there, as I was going around with these half pieces, I did not like how they looked not attached to these, if that makes sense. I wanted them to attach in the middle of these, but you can't do that. That's the one thing I love about Arc, by the way, because you can manipulate some of the snap points by putting things into the ground. This is kind of a rigid snap point system, and it doesn't give you a lot of leeway. Also, I hate how material doesn't blend when you put it down. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent here. Anyway, so the idea here was, this has changed a few times because now that they've allowed you to pull material from boxes, so you don't have to actually go grab the individual items. You used to have to just go grab the individual items, go over to your workstation, use them, and then put them back. Now, shut up, Max. Nowadays, you can just pull from material. So I built this to make it a little closer. It gave me a shelving system to work, so that way from this workbench, as you can see, I can have access to all 16 storage bins, no problem. I used to have them spread out across the floor all the way to here, and then all of these were over here nicely stacked, but I need them closer here so that they can all have access to the 16 storage bins as well. Because I didn't like the idea of having to pull things and do a bunch of it was just dumb. And then I needed a place to store armor and weapons. So all these weapons I had made, everything like that, I didn't want to carry them, so I wanted them out for display. So I started putting all of my armor and weapons up here, and I just kind of created a little shrine. These are all just extra armor pieces, extra things that I've collected, extra pieces that I've made, but this just became a little work area. So one last thing about this location is, if you guys do want to build here, I recommend it. It's right up above Frankenline. It's a really good location, mainly because nothing really attacks you here. This is just a super great location. Now, really quickly, I'll show you the other location and my thought process on that build. Now, I worked forever on this build. I had this idea that I wanted a castle, and I knew I wanted some dimensions, some depth. I wanted it tucked back against a wall. I kind of had a Helm's Deep Lord of the Rings thought into the mountains. There's not really a mountain here for me to mess with, so I kind of like put it up against this wall, was like my initial idea. And then I had this idea to have like a dungeon, but like, how could I build underground when you can't dig, kind of thing. So like, I had this whole series of thoughts that I wanted to do with this, but then the game kind of came out full release. We had like a story to play through, and I built this, but I haven't done a ton with it since. I just love the overall idea of having a castle. I had the two entryways because aesthetically I couldn't get one to work for me, and the walls weren't mapped out correctly. But having the two entryways ended up working, and I was fine with it. Although you can just jump that, but I left it alone. And then I wanted like a single walkway up into the main entrance door, and you enter the throne room. All right. And I had no real plan to like make this some working kitchen kind of look, or like, and I wanted like a fire pit over here in this section. I wish you could just make like a fire ring without the cooking aspect of it, just so I can have like a fire going on all the time. I'll probably try to come up with some way to do that. So I ended up going with these like two skinny walkways up into the bedroom up above. Nothing crazy. And then my overall idea was I wanted to be able to access the upper section up here, which I found out I could just jump here and then jump up here. So I kind of left it alone for now. The whole idea was to eventually build up high enough. I was going to build one more tower up and then have like a walkway that walks directly off onto that, so I could always access that. And then as for my underneath area, I wanted this to be where I did all of my storage and like working and something like that. I have a ton of chests that I created placed down here. This was going to be one section of it working over here, and then in here the idea was all the chests are on the outer walls, so I can access all 23 chests from the inside of this room through my nearby storage, which is perfect. So I can access all 23 chests from inside of this room. That was like the whole thought process of that. So this is like the inner dungeon with my working room inside of there. I wanted to like hide the lighting, so I made these walls like this. So like I made that wall and then closed it off and gave myself this little like tucked away section, so the lighting back in there kind of like lit up the area, kind of, you know, stuff like that. It was like little stuff I was just messing around with working, and I didn't have like a real plan of how all of this was gonna unfold. I wanted a more hidden way to get down here, but I just couldn't come up. I was gonna do something where I could remove this wall, and like there was a drop down walkway, but I couldn't get things to like play out to where you couldn't see it. Things like that. But like this whole thing came about because I wanted a castle. That was it. In terms of like how I think about things looking, once again, as you can see, it's very symmetrical. Like I wanted things to play out in this aspect, you know, and then the top piece was, I remember it being kind of annoying to me because I couldn't get a perfect circle to sit symmetrically up there. So I ended up having to do these two rounded sections, but it ended up looking good to me. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm fine with it. And then as I was laying out the wall that would protect me, I wanted to, because things can attack you here. So this isn't like necessarily safe. So there's a double layer and then interlining layers all between these walls right here. So all in there, there's multiple layers. I had access points to like get me through here. So there's going to be layers that are interlining all through these walls in order to help protect and, you know, save or protect your castle just a little bit better. But I wanted it to be very not straight. So I wanted to add these like little cut in pieces and things like that. And also have the little jet out, you know, leaving spots. So a lot of these things kind of annoyed me because you couldn't get the exact like walls to match up like I needed them to because like of the way snap points work. But all of this kind of comes from finding a decent area. I leveled it out using a foundation because it wasn't level. So always level out using foundation. So I made my own foundation. This took a ton to fill in, and as you can see, I filled in all of this so it would be perfectly level. This, even though I'm not using all of this back here, I filled all of this in because I needed it to be level. I was gonna fill all of this in, but then I decided that I wanted like a little courtyard kind of area, but all of this got filled in because I needed it to be level. So look for an area, level it out with foundation, make it symmetrical because you want things to kind of match up aesthetically, and you'll end up with a nice little product at the end of it. All right, guys, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys ended up liking this video, please hit that like button below. It does help with the algorithm. If you end up liking me, consider subscribing to the channel. Grounded is one of my favorite survival games. I love playing it. So if that's something that you enjoy and you like things like that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And I think you'll like a lot of the content here. Plenty of survival games coming out this year. I will be checking out most of them, and a lot of open world games. So I'll be playing those as well, and throwing some horror games in there because why not get scared on occasion and watch me be terrified? Because horror games are fun, but woo, woo, they can get to you. Anyway, take care. Peace out. As always, I'll catch you in the next one.